Newcastle's summer exodus is set to reach a crisis point. Sean, you'll have heard this news. Sandro Tonali, Anthony Gordon, of course, already out the door. Club captain and fan favourite Bruno Guimarães has reportedly informed the hierarchy that he wants to join champions Arsenal.
Is on Bruno Guimarães. Bruno Guimarães and Arsenal. So that story is something I've been reporting on over the last few weeks. I told you about a bid sent by Arsenal to Newcastle and rejected by Newcastle, £55 million, but there is more to say on Bruno position, on Newcastle position, on Arsenal position, and on agents. So it's in Bruno Guimarães. I've been telling you everything over the recent weeks, and my position remains absolutely clear. Arsenal want Bruno Guimarães. Let's enter into all the details on every single side of this story. First detail, what happened so far? Newcastle and Arsenal have been in contact about the story of Bruno Guimarães. Arsenal opening bid was 55 million pounds, rejected by Newcastle. Then Arsenal last week indicated to Newcastle via the agents of the player that they were ready to reach 65 million pounds. But Newcastle still closing doors to this possibility. So no to 55 million pounds bid, no to the suggestion to offer 65 million pounds. Then what happened? My understanding is on player side, Bruno Guimarães wants to go to Arsenal. Bruno Guimarães has clear desire to go to Arsenal, and personal terms would not be an issue. So Bruno wants to go to London and wants to go to Arsenal. Then Bruno Guimarães, from what I understand, didn't tell Newcastle something in Alexander Isak story style like 1 year ago. Sell me or I'm not gonna stay here. Bruno Guimarães wants to be respectful with Newcastle. If Newcastle can reach an agreement with Arsenal, Bruno will be happy to go to Arsenal. If this doesn't happen, Bruno Guimarães will not create problems to Newcastle. So it's a different attitude by Bruno. Bruno is not saying sell me or I'm gonna create issues. That's really important to mention. But Bruno wants to go to Arsenal. And now what's gonna happen next? My understanding, sources involved and close to the story say that a transfer fee maybe around 90 million pounds could be the beginning of the discussion. Arsenal, from my understanding, are not offering 90 million pounds, at least at this stage, so it has to be negotiated. We have to see now if, from the starting point, 55, then eventual 65 million pounds, and the magic number in this case, 90 million pounds, if in this range, Newcastle and Arsenal can try to reach an agreement.
And what about Bruno Guimarães, Newcastle's captain, the man who walked up those famous steps at Wembley to lift their first domestic trophy in several decades when they beat Liverpool in the League Cup final a couple of seasons ago. Well, it's TalkSport's understanding that Guimarães has told Newcastle he wants to leave St James's Park, he wants to join Arsenal. Personal terms, I can reveal, already in place between Guimarães and Arsenal. No club-to-club agreement yet, and Newcastle sources scoffing at suggestions they'd be willing to do business for £60 million. I think the fee will have...
With another star player forcing his way out, Darren Bent raised serious concerns about what this loss could mean for Eddie Howe next season.
Yeah, what they bought some of these players for. Isak was at 60 million, they're selling for 120. Like tonight, they bought him for a fee, they're selling for more. So clearly he's improving these players, but at some point, I think if Newcastle do want to go to the next level, they've got, I know it's hard with the PSR and the financial fair play, but if they do want to go to the next level and then stay there, they've got to find a way of holding on.
This floral number, watching on the smart TV, I like that, sure. Do you have sympathy for Eddie Howe in this situation? The latest is that Bruno has agreed personal terms with Arsenal, but Newcastle's stance is that he remains not for sale.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's really tough, and the challenge that you have is not just if one of your big players goes at any football club, at any level really. People understand there's a time and a place. When two go, that can make other players a bit itchy and a bit nervy. But then if three go, all of a sudden they're going, hang on a minute, who are we bringing in? And I think they're right on that cusp. I don't know their situation at PSR, but I've been through that obviously in my time at Everton, so I know how dangerous that can be. But I think losing the players of that quality, I think that's really tough on Eddie, and I think he's done a great job there. So hopefully, I mean, look, you never know on the other side of that. good people in their recruitment there. They've shown that over the years, so they might have people lined up, don't forget. So these things can twist very quickly when you get a freshness in the camp and a newness and some quality, and all of a sudden it can feel different. But there's three big players without a shot. Well, if Guimarães goes, there are three big players without a doubt.
I feel for the fan base in this one because of what happened with the Isak saga last summer. You know, it was a mess.
Yeah, I mean,
and Bruno was their man. He was like their hero in it all.
All parties, I mean, I don't know the inside story, but all parties have a part to play. So I remember talking about that on the shows, and, you know, what was Isak's part in that? Do you know what I mean? What was the club's part? Who told who what? You know what I mean? These are the things you're never quite sure about. So, but I think they've had a tougher season this season than they had previously. But I still think Eddie's done a remarkable job there, because people forget where they were and where they've got to. And I know they've got money and they've put money in and all that, but you still got to spend it wisely. Your recruitment side has still got to do a good job, and they have done. If they lose Guimarães as well, I think it's a real big knock to take for the club, for the fans, but also for Eddie as well.
Yeah, I was listening to White and Jordan yesterday, the fans getting in touch, you know, who are feeling it and who are raging as well at Tonali, you know, on his way out after the club stood by him in his situation.
Yeah, no, that's football life. You know, I mean, you know, it's such a cutthroat business. That's just the way it is. You've been through it, you know, as a manager, I've been through it with players and I've had to turn players' moves down, which is awkward and it's difficult. This is, you know, the rules of the jungle, if you like. You know, Tonali, they were saying about how he was impressed with the manager. I bet he was impressed with his pay packet as well. But there's no point. We can all bluff and blag it, but at the end of the day, players still want rewarding, and when they get rewarded into, I don't know, let's call it double. Double's double. No matter what you do in life, no matter how much you earn, double is double. So if someone's doubling your pay packet, you're probably going to want to go and have talks with them and probably going to want to move. So I think that's just the way that football works, you know what I mean? So I don't think there's no crying in football. Just got to get on with it.
And it'll be a test in a few weeks for Newcastle fans. They're going to be developing a tough skin when it comes to the transfer business. Another one of their star players wanting the exit door, which became the latest Newcastle star wanting to leave the club, following in the footsteps of Anthony Gordon and Sandro Tonali. TalkSport understands that the Brazilian has agreed terms with the Gunners, who are reportedly to pay up to $60 million for the midfielder. If you're Eddie Howe right now, how much of a nightmare is this?
It's certainly not enjoyable for him. I'm sure of that. I think having done so much work, to build a group of players who are certainly competitive without a shadow of a doubt, and the fan base has got along with that. Great fans sticking behind it and building it with them, and the finance, to be fair. But when you see these players, you know, it starts coming apart, that's when it gets really difficult. And the way that modern players are, the power now that they've got is, I get the idea the club can say no, but if you're going to say no in the old days, 15, 20 years ago, it'd be, look, you're under contract, no, there'll come your time and all that. Now it's almost like, okay, it's a no, but now you have to give them an increased contract. By the way, I'm not saying these players are using it for that, but that's the way it works now. You know, if a player does get genuine interest and the club put in an offer, you then have to go to them pretty quick and say, right, we want you to sign a new contract. And if you don't, you got trouble then, because you got a player coming in every day that doesn't really want to be there. And I'm generalising it. I'm not using this individual player. I'm just saying that's the way the market's changed. You know, the power of the player, the power of the agents has changed significantly, even over the last probably 5 years. You know, it's a different ballgame now.
So what power does the manager have? I mean, if you've been here in this position and you've got the likes of Gordon, Guimarães, Tonali, all leaving Isak last summer.
Well, the thing that I always go to, and it was with the Isak thing, I was saying you don't know what's said, right? Because what often happens in these situations is contractually, we all know what that means because it's all written down. But there's a lot of word of mouth stuff. You know, it's like, look, you do well by us, and if someone comes in the future and we deem it a bigger situation, or let's say a bigger club, because Newcastle's a big club, but at the time they signed, maybe it was just growing a little bit, and they say, look, you know, if someone's superpower comes in, blah, blah, blah. So you don't know what's said as like the old-fashioned gentleman's agreement. You know, you don't know what's said. So if there's a said agreement, whereas if like, look, we know why you're here, come and enjoy it, you've done great for us, and when that day comes, we'll honour you to go somewhere else. You don't know whether any of that's been said.
Do you reckon that has happened?
I don't know, but I thought the Isak one was an interesting one because he seemed to make it seemed such a big deal for him to say, no, I'm not coming back to train and everything. I just wondered if there was some kind of word of mouth thing, whether it's the manager, whether it's the technical director, whether it's the ownership and all that sort of stuff. The ownership's in a lot of cases getting more involved in the dealings as well. And then you might have a technical director who's involved in the dealings, and you have the manager involved in the dealings, and it can suddenly who said what, you know. I'm just generalising here, not about Newcastle United, but you know, this is how it can change really quickly. And then the agent gets involved and said, well, you said, he said, she said, and all that sort of stuff. So it can get a bit messy sometimes, or it can very often be simple. You know, it seems to me